We start chapter 236 with someone nobody ever expected to see again, Satoru Gojo. The original, not Kenjaku puppeting his corpse. He's back. The sorcerer waves, grinning happily as he greets his old best friend. This reunion has been a long time coming. Gojo almost loses his glasses in sheer shock. He keels forward, looking like he's about to vomit just at the sight of the other man. Thankfully, he keeps his lunch. Instead, he leans back in his chair, despairing at this reunion. Geto looks kind of wounded at Gojo being this unhappy to see him. It's been a while since they last met. No friend likes getting that kind of welcome. The two are sitting together in a public place. There's some plants behind them and a small stall selling baked goods just behind the benches. Both of them are wearing their old high school uniforms. Everything seems cool, calm, and normal. This is weird. This whole scene has come out of nowhere. Last chapter, we were still following the one-on-one fight between Gojo and Sukuna. We were right at what should have been the final part of that battle. And now we've just cut to Gojo and his dead best friend back in their old high school look. Is this a flashback? A vision sent by Kenjaku? What's going on here? Maybe Gege can explain. Quote, "The break last week makes it seem like I've forgotten to write a chapter." You're not wrong, Gege, this is weird. Anyway, Gojo's not actually angry at Geto. He's angry at what seeing him means. He told his students that when you die, you'll be alone. It was supposed to be philosophical and meaningful. He was trying to be a cool mentor, sharing some wisdom and life advice with the students. His words were supposed to help his kids feel at peace with how dangerous being a Jujutsu sorcerer is. Geto claims that him being there doesn't matter though. Maybe all of this is just a dream as his old friend bleeds out. Maybe it's Geto's soul showing up to welcome his old friend into the afterlife. He's here either way. So what if Gojo's cool speeches to his students are wrong? That's not his problem. Still, the white-haired sorcerer is not okay. And that's not just because Geto showed up to greet him. Gojo's annoyed at not getting the chance to reveal information about someone's dad to them. One item of business he hadn't been able to resolve before his death. Still, after a second, he calms down. He asks Shoko to deal with that. She'll make things right, even if he's not there. But his dad. Whose dad? Gojo was talking with Shoko for a bit after he was unsealed from the prison realm. We didn't see all of that conversation. He could have asked her to do something, like pass a message to one of his students. But whose dad was he thinking of? Yuji's? Megumi's? His own? What last secret is there about someone's dad? What does Gojo know that we don't? Still, that's a problem for the living now. Geto, grinning, asks how Sukuna was to fight. Gojo doesn't hold back or try to smack talk his final opponent. He breathes out before yelling at the top of his lungs that Sukuna was ridiculously strong. He won through power and skill, not cheap tricks. What's worse, even fighting against the strongest living sorcerer, the King of Curses was not going all out. Even without the stolen 10 Shadows technique, Gojo's pretty sure that Sukuna could have probably won. We get a wider look at their surroundings now. They are at an airport terminal. Of course, because they're both moving on and they're dead. Even in death, Satoru cannot escape one final bit of humor. Oddly though, Gojo says that he feels sorry for Sukuna. He can understand a bit of how the King of Curses feels. Gojo's used to feeling isolated thanks to his power. Infinity meant that there was literally always distance between him and the people in his life. Even people like Geto, who he considered a friend, were not able to get that close to him. That was part of why Suguru's betrayal stung so hard. Gojo compares his relationship with the world to looking at flowers in a garden. You can admire something beautiful, something unique, something you can't touch. But that's not the same thing as getting it to understand you. There's just too much of a difference between the flower and the person looking at it. All you can do is watch. And Gojo admits something odd. He's got more than sympathy for Sukuna. He was hoping to do more. He put everything he had into trying to reach him, to make him understand. Despite all his physical training, the techniques he's mastered, his explosiveness, quick thinking, and attempts at humor, and generally just giving it his all, it was not enough. Gojo was actually trying to teach Sukuna empathy by fighting him. It's strange, but makes a lot of sense. As powerful and as isolated as Gojo is, his students are the ones that keep him grounded. Trying to use fighting to build a connection is one way he might get through to the King of Curses. It's said that psychopathy has its root in not being able to empathize with other people, not being able to view them as humans. They're just things, toys. That's the sort of viewpoint too much power can give you. Gojo understands that. He must have thought that being able to fight Sukuna, he would be able to show him that he was something more than a toy. That everyone could be more than that. Even after everything Sukuna has done, Gojo's actually got some sympathy for the King of Curses. Did he actually think he'd be able to turn Sukuna into a regular person? Someone who wouldn't just kill innocent people for fun. That seems unlikely, but what else could Gojo have been hoping for? What would changing Sukuna, reaching Sukuna, even do? It's Gojo, he may not have thought that far ahead. Still, he thinks that someone else will teach Sukuna empathy and love even where he failed. Maybe one of Gojo's students can pull it off. Someone who could actually force Sukuna to view them as an equal, a person, rather than a toy. But again, that's a question for the living. As for him, Gojo is happy with how the final fight went. He enjoyed it. He got to have a ton of fun and go all out. He knows he couldn't have done more, so there's no sense feeling guilty about losing. He's just disappointed it wasn't enough to make Sukuna get the same sense of satisfaction. Geto pokes fun at his old friend for having so much fun with his own death. He's not as considerate for all his opponents. Gojo did not give Geto a cool final fight. Yuta fought Geto during the night parade, sure, but Suguru was still alive after that. Gojo just killed him casually in the aftermath while the rogue sorcerer was wounded rather than capturing him or letting him recover. He didn't get Gojo's level of satisfaction with his own death. Gojo thinks a little bit about that. Going over how things went, he did have one disappointment with this final fight. Instead of anything to do with the battle though, he just wished that Geto had been there before things kicked off to cheer for his one last fight alongside Gojo's other friends. Geto's silent for a second, a little embarrassed. After a bit though, he laughed. Of course Gojo would say something like that, even about the friend who betrayed his trust, having lost Geto, having been forced to kill him. Gojo isn't happy things turned out as they did. He wanted better for Geto. He wanted his students to meet the man he knew, his best friend. Their bond mattered, even at the end. Gojo looks up towards the upper parts of the terminal. He's at least glad that he went down fighting a strong opponent rather than falling to old age or disease. A new voice calls him out for that. Gojo's talking like a samurai, an ancient honorable warrior bound by code. Nanami thinks that's outdated. Still, that might be what led to Gojo ultimately outliving the salaryman sorcerer. Trying to live for the fight versus trying to outlive the fight. Yeah, there's more dead people here. This time, it's the two underclassmen Jujutsu sorcerers back in their old uniforms too. That's how Gojo remembers them. Haibara laughs as Gojo ruffles Nanami's hair. He thinks neither of his friends' deaths really prove either better. Instead, Haibara figures that both the dead sorcerers just miscalculated things. Nanami, trying to shove Gojo away, starts on an anecdote. He asks Geto why they couldn't just leave all the cursed spirit fighting to the almighty Gojo. The answer wasn't flattering. Gojo wasn't concerned about keeping sorcery going or protecting people. He just enjoyed fighting. He loved being the best, showing off his powers and brawling with all he had. Gojo looks like he doesn't want to hear that. He tried to be more than just a fighter, teaching the next generation and meddling with the Jujutsu Elder's plans. But Haibara agrees, claiming everyone thought that Gojo just wanted to brawl. He puts his hands together, apologizing for having to say that out loud. Still, it's hard to take his sorry seriously when he's still smiling. Nanami and Geto rub it in. Gojo died, not protecting anyone, not ensuring sorcery would continue, but just having fun with a final fight against Sukuna. Nothing forced him to make this a one-on-one battle. He proved them right, and as much as he might want to argue, Gojo doesn't have anything to say to that. Still, they're all friends here, and it's clear that Gojo aspired to do more than just punch people. There's no sense making him dwell on his shortcomings. Nanami smiles at his old friend. Even if he doesn't approve of Gojo's death, he can sympathize. He even calls it a fitting way for his senior to finally die. One final challenging fight for the man who found everything easy. Still embarrassed, Gojo turns the subject around, asking Nanami how he felt about his own death. Haibara admits that he showed up for the salaryman's final moments. Still kinda embarrassed to have intruded on something so personal. Still, Nanami had asked him for his thoughts. It's not Haibara's fault. Wait a minute, this means that this cannot be a dream. There is no way that Gojo would know what Nanami saw in his last moments. These are the dead souls of Gojo's old friends. The afterlife is a real thing in Jujutsu Kaisen. Nanami seems to confirm as much, at least sort of. Curses and sorcery do seem to be able to blur the line between life and death. Mahito's powers were supposed to affect the soul, but this raises a ton of questions. Is the afterlife terminal lounge a literal thing, or is this just how Gojo perceives it? That would explain why everyone is in their high school uniform. It's how he chooses to remember them. If the afterlife is real, could Jujutsu sorcery reach it? Could actual at-peace dead souls be brought back as some kind of counter to cursed spirits? How would this affect Kenjaku's plan? As to how he met his own end, Nanami changes the topic to try and better explain his thoughts. He once asked Mei where he should go live. She told him something strange. If he wanted to become someone new, he should go north. If he wanted to return to being who he used to be, he should go south. Back then, he went south. He returned to Jujutsu sorcery. Nanami always loved looking back to history, appreciating what came before. Even now, he finds it funny that he died betting on the future instead, on Yuji Itadori. As strange as it was for his death to be the opposite of how he lived, Nanami is happy with how things turned out. He admits that he is grateful to Haibara for giving him something to hope for and keeping him company. The youngest sorcerer is still blushing at talking to his seniors as an equal like this. Gojo nods sagely, like he is a wise man finally making some great discovery through talking to his friends. Instead though, he just yells over at Principal Yaga, who is apparently also here in this strange afterlife departure lounge. Gojo mocks the old man for being proven wrong too. All their old cynical wisdom was wrong. Jujutsu sorcerers can totally die without regrets. At this moment, everyone is laughing. Gojo, Geto, Nanami, and Haibara. Even Riko and Misato are here to share this final moment. Gojo looks out at the plane, the path to his final destination. After all this, he's finally hoping that this happy reunion isn't just a dream. And back in reality, Gojo is already gone. His body's been severed at the torso, and blood cakes his mouth. There's way too much damage here for a reverse curse technique to deal with. Traces of debris continue to fall from broken buildings as Sukuna starts to talk. Now that the fighting is over, he has to explain just how he pulled this off. It all comes back to how Mahoraga's adaptation works. It just takes one attack to start the adaptation, and after that, it's only a matter of time. More repetitions of that attack will speed it up. But the spirit keeps adapting even after it's overcome a technique. More knowledge gives it more options when dealing with it. It never stops learning. Watching the spirit work gave Sukuna a model, an idea. It actually taught him how to tear through infinity. All this time, Mahoraga was altering its existence to find a second way to nullify Gojo's curse technique. Sukuna was using it to figure out a way he could cut through infinity. He's not the great cursed spirit, but he can learn from the Shikigami and try to replicate its moves. Yuji, Yuta, and Maki look on, frightened, angry, and sad all at once as Sukuna finishes his explanation. The second adaptation was exactly what he needed. Mahoraga was able to change the target of its attack. Instead of just cutting Gojo, it cut everything. That just gave Sukuna a massive power-up. Malevolent Shrine can cut anything. Sukuna admits that even for him, this Mahoraga cut technique was nearly impossible to perform. But nearly impossible is still possible. Using any domain would be dangerous against him now, and that was enough to end Gojo. His legs are still standing, even as the rest of his body lies in a heap behind him. That's not good. Even beyond the obvious loss of Gojo as a combatant, there's a danger here. Sukuna suspected that Gojo personally held on to his one remaining mummified finger. It was supposed to be a way to make sure that Yuji wasn't executed. If no one defends Gojo's body, he's about to get even stronger. Could that finger heal his damage from the fight, or fully unlock the maximum power of Malevolent Shrine? The last 12 chapters has featured these two super powerful sorcerers throwing everything at each other, and Sukuna may be able to get even more powerful. How strong can the King of Curses get? Thankfully, for now, Sukuna's looking pretty mortal. He's lost an eye, and he's covered in blood. He took some hefty damage in the fight, and his curse energy reserves have to be drained by this point. Hopefully, he's still drained enough that the remaining Jujutsu sorcerers have a chance to take him down. Still, Sukuna is smiling. He admits that Gojo did well and claims that he won't forget the white-haired sorcerer for as long as he lives. Still, there's that same look in Sukuna's eyes, that crazy bloodthirsty glee. This has not changed him. Gojo's lying there, unable to hear a word. From the tower, there's a sudden flash of blinding light. Someone's moving right away, heading straight into the fight rather than taking the time to mourn Gojo. Sukuna looks up slowly, his smile starting to fade. His feelings about this are mixed. He's happy at how that fight went, feeling great and more than down for a follow-up battle in theory. All the same, he doesn't want a disappointment. Crushing some no-name after a throwdown like that would just be underwhelming. Thankfully, next into the ring is Kashimo Hajime, the ancient battle-loving sorcerer. He's strong enough to at least provide the King of Curses with a bit of a challenge. He's been waiting to fight Sukuna for 400 years, so you can bet that he's gonna give this his all. And hey, this isn't even the first time he's tried to use raw power to kill an unkillable opponent. But will a god of lightning be enough to stop the King of Curses? If Sukuna's drained and Hajime goes all out, he could have a shot at taking down his ancient rival, right? But according to the narration comment, he's dashing towards near certain death. That does not look promising. But at least it's just near certain, right? And hey, even if Kashimo ultimately goes down against Sukuna, at least he can buy the rest of the sorcerers enough time to actually make a plan for what to do now that they've lost Gojo. Come together and try to fight him as a unit, go one by one trying to wear him down even more. They've got powerful fighters who might have a shot. Yuta, Maki, Haraki, even Yuji might be able to do something. They've got a wide variety of curse techniques between them. If they can form a proper plan, they might just be an amazing team. But there's no clear order of authority right now. No one who everyone will agree with. If they can't pull together and this turns into chaos, there is no way any of them can manage to take down Sukuna. This has the potential to get worse and worse, as if it wasn't already a worst case scenario. Some of you guys wanted to see some JJK content on the channel, and this is one hell of a moment, so here we go. Hopefully you enjoyed, and if you want to see more, keep sounding off in the comments. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.